Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. In today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a rare September Arctic outbreak that will be occurring in the next few days here. You may think that it is a little silly that I'm calling this an Arctic outbreak in September, but this thing is going to be truly legendary. The anomalies are going to be potentially up to 30 degrees below average in terms of Fahrenheit. There will be widespread first frosts and freezes across a good portion of the Midwest and Upper Plains. And honestly, anything that I can get to people watch this video, especially gardeners, and get their attention on this, because this might catch a lot of people off guard with their first frost and freezes. Typically, a lot of these areas, even yes, they're far north, they don't see frost and freezes this early, which is why I'm calling this a Arctic outbreak. I will be showing you several models, mainly the European and the GFS, and I'll be showing you their forecast for this potential large fall system that is going to be out ahead of this cold air, and how that system acts as a pump, pumping in a lot of this cold air into the United States. So yes, this isn't just a cold air mass moving in on its own. It's going to be accompanied by a very strong cold front and a large, you could say massive fall storm. So let me begin by looking at the European model. So this model has done a pretty good job with this system. Throughout the summer months, it has done a pretty poor job with a lot of the other summer rains, but to be honest, the models in general had a pretty poor handle on it. This time around, it has shifted. The European is doing a pretty good job showing the system pretty consistently. I want to say right off the bat that the GFS and European model are both still in disagreement, but they are both showing this large system and this large pool of very cold fall air moving in. So now the question remains, which one will be more accurate and what exact changes will still occur. So if you're wondering when will this be occurring, it's not going to be occurring this weekend. As you can see, I'm running through this time frame into Saturday and Sunday of the last few days of August, so this upcoming weekend, right, Labor Day weekend. Here is the time frame. If you ever want to look at what I am currently at, here's the time. So this is right now currently set, for example, at 10 p.m. August 30th. Notice there really isn't anything going on. There aren't really any Arctic blasts. There aren't really any massive storms. And that's because the system that we're talking about still hasn't reared its ugly head. All right, so notice that by Sunday and Monday, we start seeing a little bit of activity towards the north, especially on Monday, across Saskatchewan and Manitoba into Ontario. We see showers and storms developing from a cold front moving down. Now, this cold front by itself isn't evil yet, but as it interacts with the warm air mass just to the south of it and another cooler air mass to the further south of that, we start seeing this thing tilt itself. So instead, because of this high pressure that is going to be centered across the northeast, right? So we have a high pressure across the northeast, and all high pressures in meteorological terms, they spin clockwise, kind of like a clock. So the winds from this high pressure are pretty strong. It's a pretty strong high pressure, and more importantly, it is a stubborn high pressure. It's not really moving anywhere, and the winds from this high pressure are keeping this cold front from just swooping in and pretty much allowing that cold air only to maybe clip the United States, which is normally what we do get with these fall systems, which is why this one is going to be so rare and so unique. Note that this thing starts vertically tilting itself. Initially, it is pretty much horizontal, then it becomes positively tilted, and then it becomes fully vertical as that cold air behind it really digs down to the south. Again, very cold air for this time of the year, which also allows this system to become pretty strong. Now, the last few days, the European model has kind of backed off from a single large system. It has been doing that prior, where it showed this initial front, which we're looking at right now, the midweek of next week, Wednesday, September 3rd. It showed that system in a form that was already very cyclonic. It had that really nice back shape to it with a lot of precipitation hanging from the backside of it. Now it seems as if it's going to be taking its time with its development, which allows the cold air to actually go further south. At this point, the cold air looks something like this. You can see that the anomaly is definitely there. We are at this point approaching almost 15 degrees below average on Celsius, so still not the really cold air, but again, at this point, the front is beginning to dig into the United States, and it's going to start off by hitting the northern plains by around that Wednesday time frame. I do want to note and point out that the northwest at this time and British Columbia will be warm. Same thing with Nova Scotia and New England. You guys, Nova Scotia, I meant Nova Scotia, New England, Quebec, not just Nova Scotia and New England. In that general area, there will also be warm temperatures out ahead of the storm, so don't get fooled by that. Even though this video is titled about a fall Arctic outbreak, I will focus on the temperatures in just a tad, but you have to understand where the cold air is coming from. It's because of this large system, so I have to address it. The system in itself is already pretty anomalous in the fact that it is very strong for this time of the year. Late August, early September timeframe, we rarely get systems so well organized, and which allows this cold air to again be so intense. So notice that the European kind of doesn't develop it into cyclone immediately, keeps it very just almost like a frontal system. There's just a front, it stalls out almost completely across Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. The moisture is going to be limited here for severe weather, but because of the extreme dynamics of the system, severe weather is going to be a concern, because again, you have a roaring jet stream, you still have a lot of strong southerly winds bringing in decent moisture, so the severe weather threat from this will be actually higher than most would think. By this time, Thursday, so this is now Thursday, September 4th at 1 a.m. Central Time. And do note that this thing is beginning to intensify into a low pressure, and it's beginning to slowly morph into more of a system rather than just a cold front. And with that, on the backside of it, it allows this lobe of cold air to get kind of stuck across Minnesota, Wisconsin, southeastern Canada, not southeastern Canada, southeastern Ontario. Ontario isn't just all of Canada. But notice that this thing really begins to develop into a classic larger storm by the time we only get into Thursday, where we have that comma shaped right there. The GFS, for example, thinks that this will fall as snow across portions of Ontario and the UP of Michigan, so we'll have to keep an eye on for that. And then a cold front that stretches for thousands of miles from the deep south all the way into where polar bears live. So yes, this is truly a powerful, powerful storm, a very anomalous and rare system to be developing this early on. After that, the European does end up potentially bringing in another little feature here across the upper plains, or sorry, the upper Great Lakes. You may be wondering, why am I focusing on such a little turd of green on the map here? But the thing is that the GFS, I'll show you in just a little bit, it takes that and develops it into almost like a new system, so it's important to address that. Looking at the precipitation map, I want to take a look at the GFS precipitation map, and then I'll get into the temperatures. I'll briefly go over the GFS just to point out some differences. So again, this would be Tuesday beginning across the northern United States, Wednesday and into Thursday of next week. Not this weekend, it's still a few days out. I will be making updates as this forecast changes. Notice the GFS does show more snowfall with this system further north. The European did not. Notice that as this front seeps down, it's pretty similar to the European. It's not an actual storm system, but by the time Wednesday and Thursday come, it is beginning to differ a little bit. While the European at this point spins it into a more of a stronger cyclone, the GFS does not. It's just kind of a continuous air mass, or sorry, rain mass, and it's a slug of moisture. The cold air is definitely there, and it's again trapped across potentially their Ontario, the northern Great Lakes. That will probably still shift a little bit as these models come in. And notice that there is a little bit of that blue coloring. As this thing spins away and slowly moves away with that cold air, the GFS brings in that little feature that, if you recall, the European I just showed you didn't really emphasize and showed it in, pretty much ignored it, while the GFS almost essentially forms it into a whole new system, which allows that cold air to be prolonged. So that's going to be important in the prolonging of that cold air. Now let's start talking about the temperatures. As we have been talking about the precipitation and the storm side of things, I want to focus now on the temperatures. So right now you can see we are currently situated on this map at 12 hours from current time. So this is 7 p.m. August 29th. And notice we have a little bit of cool air across the Central Plains, the Great Lakes, southeastern Canada. Nothing crazy. It's definitely been already a cool pattern, so you can't call this a major pattern change that's coming up. It'll just be kind of a pattern intensification, because the cold air, while it was chilly and it broke from a lot of that heat that we've been seeing, it's nothing compared to what we're going to be seeing. And this isn't necessarily meant to scare you, but I do want to emphasize just how cold this air will be. Notice that as I push this into Sunday and Saturday, at this point now Monday, the cold air across the United States, chilly air I should really specify, remains, but we see actually a heat wave developing across southern Canada with anomalies that are very, very warm. So you may be wondering, okay, if you live across these areas on Monday, where is this cool down this crazy guy with long hair on YouTube was talking about? Well, just wait and see, because by Tuesday, late Monday, Tuesday of next weekend, so this is now September 1st, I know, time flies past, it's already the beginning of the month at that point, we see the cool air mass beginning to develop across southern Canada. At this point, it's still nothing crazy, because this system, the frontal air from that cold front is cold, but it's not really what gets that air that cold. It's once that system intensifies and pumps it down further south. Notice that by Tuesday night and into Wednesday, this thing continues increasing in anomaly as it goes further south and the averages are higher. So you say you have, a 50-degree weather across Canada. That's chilly for September, but it's nothing compared to what 50 feels like across the central United States. Very, very cold because the averages are warmer. And look at that. By Wednesday, we have a very, very profound area of cold air across the Dakotas, Minnesota. Notice across southwestern Canada and the northwestern United States, we are dealing with warmth, and not just any kind of warmth, pretty much as anomalous as this cool down. So you guys will be baking in really, really warm temperatures, upper 80s and hundreds, while Florida and the Key West will be cooler than you. Really a absolute flip up of patterns and a flip up of what we consider normal. And this isn't it. The European further intensifies this cold air as it shoves it further south. By Thursday, we're looking at pinks and purples, indicating temperatures that are barely squeaking out of the 50s across areas during the day. Areas as far south as Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa. The Northeast at this point and in southeastern Canada, you guys are still warm. But notice that this thing continuously marches towards your way, so you will get in on this eventually. During the nighttime, these temperatures are going to be frosty. The European doesn't show necessarily widespread 30s across Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, but there definitely will be some, especially in pockets that catch that cold air. Back now to the anomaly graph with the temperatures showing the below average temperatures marching eastward. The good thing with this cool off is that the cool air will only last for a little bit across any given time. It will be a quick, sharp shot of air. It won't be a prolonged, let's say, phase of, this won't last through much of September, by no means. And notice that by Friday, Saturday, it is already leaving the plains, but it's moving into the northeast and the mid-Atlantic and even the southeast. At this point, the anomaly won't be as crazy. The temperatures will definitely be cool, but nothing extraordinary. But you guys definitely will get on some of that cool air, but only for a few days before we potentially see some sort of heat coming back. Again, it remains to be seen whether or not this heat will be anomalous, like we've been seeing across the Northwest, where it's 20 degrees above average, or just slightly warmer. It definitely will feel warmer, especially across the Midwest, following that massive cool down. This video getting too long, so I'll only briefly go over what the GFS shows in terms of anomaly. The reason for that is I believe the GFS has a slightly worse handling on this system than the European model, which is funny because at the beginning I believed the opposite. But also, it generally shows pretty similar things to what the European does. So again, cool temperatures across the southern United States, a little bit of a heat wave across southern Canada prior to midweek next week. The northwestern United States getting really, really hot, and then the southeast of Canada and northeast United States staying pretty warm up until midweek next week. Notice there's on Wednesday, Thursday, we have a very anomalous cool down across the Central Plains and Great Lakes. It stretches into the northeast. The one difference with the GFS and the European model, the GFS shows that secondary cool down from that little feature that I mentioned on that precipitation graph, and that allows for that cool air to stay a little longer for some of these areas across the northern plains and southern Canada. Note that we have cool air maintaining a pretty good degree of anomalous readings, maybe even 10 to 15 degrees below average Celsius across the Midwest still on Saturday and into Sunday, while at this point the European was heating things back up. So this would keep cooler temperatures for longer across the Midwest and Great Lakes, but also across southeastern Canada, as that seems where that concentration of that cool air really is. So we will have to wait and see which scenario is right. At this point, the models are, the GFS and European are kind of still tugging at each other. Sometimes the GFS does more of what the European does, while a few model runs later, the European is looking more like the GFS. So that's why I'm going to keep you guys updated. One last thing I want to show you is the precipitation forecast from the models. This is what the GFS shows. Again, it does have a cold front that sweeps across the central United States, so that will provide a little bit of rain, but mainly it focuses across Ontario where that cold front kind of stalls out. The European model, on the other hand, definitely shows a bit more precipitation into the Great Lakes and the Midwest, as it has that really powerful cold front. So we'll have to wait and see which one exactly is more correct. As of now, that is basically it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.